It's showtime. All right, I am live. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to the Monday night chill stream. This is a very special Monday night chill stream because there's been some changes in STFU James Land, and we got to talk about it. So the title of tonight's stream is the kill line, which is a term I only heard recently, and it's I heard it from one of these Chinese Instagram accounts that mocks American democracy. But what it is essentially is someone who's economically struggling, and one negative event drops them below the kill line. Basically, it kills them off, knocks them out of the economy. Now, what does that have to do with me? Well, sit down. I got something to tell you. On Wednesday, when I called into work, I was informed by management that the company I work for had lost the NetJets account. And I talk about NetJets all the time because 99% of the work I do is for NetJets. They lost a bunch of other accounts, and I got rugged. I got totally fucking rug pulled on that. I got completely 100% blindsided, and I didn't know what to do. Like, I did not expect that. To be honest, I was very kind of contented, because my attitude was, well, the private jet's going to keep flying forever, and they're always going to need airplane parts, and I can deliver airplane parts forever. I did not plan on my company fucking up and losing the contract, which they did. Who did they lose it to? They lost it to that company, a company called Airspace. I told you I did a couple of jobs from them November 2024 when Trump got elected, and I stopped in a rest stop in Pennsylvania, and I almost got shot by a cop chasing a black kid. Anyway, Airspace does not pay as well as Quick did. Quick used to pay $1.40 a mile. Airspace pays $1 a mile. And I kind of did the math on it. And if you just looked at the driving time to go to Virginia and back, that job would pay me, to go from Teterboro to Dulles would pay me like $23 an hour. But if you really added in the wait time, because a lot of times I check in for work at 1:30 or 2 in the afternoon, and I wouldn't get a job until like 6 in the evening. So that knocks the per hour rate down significantly. Good evening, James. Good evening, Virgil Doc. I am not about to blame you for the current misfortune of which I am enumerating. Yeah, my company, the company I work for, that I drive for, lost a NetJets account, which is my entire income. And I got rugged Wednesday afternoon. They told me, they said, oh, by the way, we lost a NetJets account. I'm like, huh, what? They're like, don't worry, it's nothing that we did. It's nothing we did wrong. I'm like, what the fuck? Dude, I don't give a shit. I'm not assigned to blame. I got to pay my fucking rent. So I panicked for a couple of days. I really panicked for a couple of days. because I had absolutely no fucking income. The company that got the contract is a lowball company. The one I told you I almost got shot on what's the name? Election day. That company, and I emailed them a couple days later. They said, no, we're not looking for anybody. We don't need anybody. Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, oh shit, how do I make a living? And I can scare the fuck out of myself. I was giving myself severe fucking anxiety attacks for like 2 days. And then on Saturday, I decided to download one of those food delivery apps, which I had tried before, but it didn't go through. This time it went through. And so I was like, fuck it, I'll just give me something to do, because I don't want to be starving and homeless. Now, and I say that all the time, and I'm not really that close to it, but I'm not that far away either. You know what I mean? And I don't ever want to sell the Bitcoin that I have. If I had to, I could last a much longer time than people would think just off the pile of Bitcoin that I have. But I don't want to sell my fucking Bitcoin. Like, why would you want to do that? So, and I have some money in the stock market, and I could, I don't. The whole buildup that I've been doing for fucking years, particularly the last 5 years, I don't want to fucking lose that. So I'm not actually at the kill line, but I felt like I was. And so I was like, I don't know, man, I'll just do this food delivery thing and see what the fuck happens. And believe it or not, I've done the math. I was just doing the math. I'm making about $17 an hour doing that, which is crazy work, because even the best job, like I said, the dullest job would pay like 23 an hour if you just looked at the driving time. If you looked at total time for the job, because I almost never did a 12-hour day. It was always like a 14 or 15-hour day. That figure would go down to about $19 an hour. And the Boston jobs would start out at 20, and then they would drop to like 18. So I'm making about the same money. I'm just not going very far. My expenses are a lot lower. Fuel is lower. I think I paid $3 in tolls in 2.5 days of work, which is, I can't even believe that. $3 or $4 in tolls. So what it ultimately means is that I can still maintain the roof over my head and manage to eat hot food, but I'm going to probably have to be putting in a lot more hours, which means I'm not going to have time to do this. You know what I mean? This is likely to be the last chill stream in quite some time, because let's face it, the irony of this is that legalized marijuana causes people to fucking order food, all kinds of fucking food, all the time. But no one talks. I rehearsed this in my mind before. No one talks about how hard it is to go from Teterboro to Taco Bell. You know what I mean? which is what I have done. I was once Teterboro level, and now I am Taco Bell level. Yeah, so that's wild, but it's I think I can actually, if I hustle, which is whatever. I'm already accustomed to 65-hour weeks. Add another 10 hours. Like, what's the big deal, And I don't have to be hundreds of miles from home, and I don't have to worry about a lot of other stuff. And I get to take breaks in the middle of the day, and I actually get out of the car, 10, 15 times a night, 10 or 15 times in a 15-hour period, as opposed to sitting there not moving for like 5 or 6 hours. So it's going to be better for me, just to overcome the negative physical effects of sitting. So yeah, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I did not know that it was doable, but after like 2.5 days, I'm thinking, yeah, I might be able to do this. It looks like I might be able to do this and avoid being starving and homeless, but I don't have a whole lot of time. Like, when you're doing that, I'm way more active than when I was delivered for quick. And Because I allowed just so much dead time. Like I said, I would I'd check in for work at like 2 in the afternoon, and they'd say, yeah, I'd stand by. And I would wait until 6 before they called me back. And it's like 4 hours. I had 4 hours to go through all kind of social media and look at 1,000 things, and go take this, take that, take this, take that, and make my little show. But that's gonna have to end because with the food delivery apps, you turn it on and it's like you kind of go not quite nonstop, but the pace gets hectic. And not that I mind. At the end of the day, uh, the perceived prestige of delivering aircraft parts versus delivering whatever appetizers is, I don't care what you call me. Like I just need to live indoors and have hot water and soap available. In the meantime, I guess we got to look at if. Well, I was talking with one of my nieces, the one niece of mine who thinks of herself as a conservative, even though she smokes weed. All her friends are lesbians. Her back is tattooed. She has kids by different guys, but she's a conservative. I realized you can call yourself anything. Like you can call any fucking thing anything. It just doesn't make it so. And at the end of the day, like I said, you always have to. Like nobody's coming to rescue you. I called Ziggy the Pollock and I told him, this and that. And he still drives. I asked him if the company he was looking for is looking for anybody. He's like, no, we can't help you. He's like, oh, don't panic, don't panic. And then I tried to call him back and he hasn't answered my phone calls in like 2 days. So, as usual, when bad things happen, you find out who your friends really are. And Ziggy the Pollock, he's a Pollock and he's a boomer, and he most definitely knows where his self-interest lies. And while he thinks of himself as a fucking wonderful human being, I assure you, it's all in his head. Anyway, but that's that. This is where it is. So you're going to have to. This is your official notice. You're going to have to find some other anti-Semitic, anti-central banking stream on YouTube or whatever. Good luck with that, or some other account. But it's I've said this train has no brakes, and you want to stop LARPing as you're going to red pill someone, or there's going to be some sort of outrage that's going to wake everybody up, and then everyone's going to somehow magically come to the correct conclusion, which is whatever fairy tale you believe in. And then they're going to do all the fucking hard work, and you're just going to get the credit for it. Yeah, I would abandon that bullshit story and get to work, because I don't know who, like a lot of times who I'm talking to or what you do for a living, but I assure you, you can get rugged just like I did. And the chances are, if it's in someone else's economic interest to fuck you over, they most certainly will. So with that, I'm gonna show, this is a kind of a longish video, but quite apropos to tonight's subject.
You don't own the land you live on. You don't control the infrastructure you depend on. You don't set the price of housing, energy, healthcare, or credit. But every month, you still owe rent, not to a lord in a castle, but to a system that decides access before opportunity. And that raises an uncomfortable question. At what point does an economy stop being modern and start behaving like feudalism again? Welcome to The Financial Historian, where money, power, and history collide, and nothing is ever as simple as it looks. When people hear the word feudalism, they picture armor, castles, kings, and peasants tied to the soil. It feels distant, primitive, obsolete, a system buried by progress and swept away by modernity. But feudalism wasn't really about swords or titles. It was about control of productive assets. In medieval Europe, land was the source of everything: food, shelter, protection, survival itself. If you controlled land, you controlled life. If you didn't, your options were limited, regardless of how hard you worked. Peasants weren't poor because they were lazy. They were constrained because they didn't own what mattered. So they entered into arrangements that were stable, predictable, and deeply unequal. Labor in exchange for access, loyalty in exchange for protection, rent in exchange for survival. This wasn't chaos, it was order. Feudalism worked precisely because it minimized uncertainty. Everyone knew their place. Mobility was rare, ownership was concentrated, and stability mattered more than freedom. That's the part modern narratives leave out. Feudalism wasn't defeated because it was inefficient. It was disrupted because something else temporarily became more powerful than land. That something was capital. Industrialization broke the monopoly land had over survival. Factories replaced fields. Cities replaced manors. Wages replaced obligations. And for the first time, people could earn income without owning the underlying asset. This was the great promise of the modern economy. You didn't need land. You needed skills. You didn't need inheritance. You needed labor. You didn't need permission. You needed a job. Ownership still mattered, but it wasn't everything. For a while, access to income was enough. That window changed everything. The 19th and 20th centuries created something historically rare. A large middle class with rising wages, expanding ownership, and genuine upward mobility. Homes became attainable. Savings mattered. Labor had leverage. Productivity gains translated, imperfectly but meaningfully, into better lives. This period taught people a powerful lesson. They assumed it was permanent. But it wasn't a new equilibrium. It was a historical exception. Because while land lost its dominance, ownership never lost its power. It simply shifted forms. Factories turned into corporations. Property turned into financial instruments. Infrastructure turned into balance sheets. And gradually, quietly, ownership began to reconcentrate. Not through conquest, but through markets. No banners, no declarations, no villains, just incentives. By the late 20th century, the logic of the system had changed again. Capital became mobile. Assets appreciated faster than wages. Finance outpaced production. And access to the things that mattered, housing, education, healthcare, energy, increasingly depended on ongoing payment, not ownership. The old obligations returned to new clothing, not fealty, but debt. Not servitude, but subscription. Not land tenure, but permanent rent. The language softened. The structure didn't. If there were a gold medal for economic euphemism, modern systems would still be on the podium. Because what replaced feudal obligation wasn't freedom, it was conditional access. You could live anywhere, as long as you could pay. You could move freely, as long as your credit allowed it. You could participate, as long as you stayed solvent. And unlike medieval peasants, modern participants were told this was empowerment. Choice, after all, feels like freedom. Even when the options converge, this is where the comparison becomes uncomfortable. Feudalism wasn't defined by cruelty. It was defined by dependency without ownership. And dependency doesn't require castles. It only requires that the assets essential to life are owned by someone else. The medieval serf depended on land he didn't own. The modern worker depends on housing, infrastructure, platforms, and financial systems he doesn't own. Different tools, same logic. And just like feudalism, the system doesn't need to be malicious to be stable. It only needs to be accepted. Most people didn't rebel against feudalism because it was unjust. They endured it because alternatives were scarce. That's the part worth paying attention to. Because when people feel trapped today, it's rarely because of laws, it's because of prices. Because leverage has shifted. Because access has become conditional again. Not by decree, by design drift. And before we talk about whether this is fair, sustainable, or inevitable, we need to understand how it happened. Because this system didn't arrive overnight, and it didn't announce itself. It evolved quietly.
All right, so that's like 5 minutes, but you see, the guy's making a lot of good points, and that's why we Bitcoin. That's why people like me, who have actually finally figured it all out, sorted it all out. That's why I do what I do. And if you, a lot of people, I think, don't want to engage with that reality. They just prefer your political fairy tale. We're going to do this, make an organized party. We're going to take the money that the bankers produce, and we're going to use it to overthrow the bankers. And then we're going to take the politicians we hate. We're going to replace it with politicians we love. And we're going to put the bad guys in jail, the good guys set free. And whatever fairy tale sustains you. You know what I mean? Like I said, my niece smokes weed and has fucking tattoos, and all her friends are lesbians, and she says I'm a conservative. And I'm like, why? Like, well, how did this? Okay, whatever. You're a conservative. You haven't conserved anything, but that's the way her father, my half brother, identified. So and she loved her father. So whatever. That's the way she identifies, but it has no connection to anything she does or says or thinks. And she really believes, I was talking to her about like the ICE people shooting those people in Minnesota. And she's like, well, she tried to run over a cop. I was like, honey, is that a death sentence? Is it a death sentence with no trial, no nothing, just instant death? Somebody just shoot you in the face? Oh, well, no, I guess, but I didn't like her. Okay, you don't like her, so she should die. I get it. This is the world you live in, and these are the people you live around. And so you need to adapt to that. And why don't people do this? And why don't people do that? The guy, the financial historian, he's got a YouTube channel. I don't, but a lot of stuff he does, I think, is, but that one was pretty decent. That was like half of the video he made. But yeah, things are going to stay the way they are because people depend on this system. As unjust and unfair as it is for the conditions of life, and that's that. Nobody hates weed more than I do, but now, strangely, I depend on the fact that fucking potheads are ordering $65 worth of Taco Bell at 2 a.m, on a Sunday. That's that's the way it is, and I'm in all these goy slop places and fucking I guess this is something that I have not had direct experience with in the last 10 years, being the highfalutin private jet bro. But yeah, coming down to earth here, this shit is not pretty, and you need to see beyond it and then decide what you're going to do, because this is let's see, well, let's go here. Let's go to warm and sunny Cuba.
This is how many Cubans earn a living after dark in Havana.
So guys, what we're looking at right here this is actually someone's house. So they're kind of chilling, watching TV, but they have this freezer setup right there. So inside their house, they're able to sell stuff right outside.
Airbnb,
so,
housing, Airbnb, Cubano,
see?
business, inside the house.
The doors or the windows to people's houses that they have set up for
Business inside the
business.
house.
And you can go ahead and just purchase stuff
Business inside the house.
directly from the house. Mi hermano. Hola. Buenas. ¿Tienen cervezas Cristal frío? ¿Fría? Quiero comprar.
6.
¿Cuántos cervezas quieres?
De momento 6.
6. All right, he's ready to party. So much respect to the Cuban people because you can see how much work they put in. They set up part of their house to have beers here. Un momento, por favor. ¿Cuánto cuesta? Muchas gracias. Propina para ti.
Muy bien.
Hasta luego.
So, Cuba wasn't like that in the 50s, but they can make it like that today. Cuba is fairly well fucked. And it's not because the Cuban people are lazy. You see, they're trying to be entrepreneurial. They're trying to be industrious. They're trying to, provide some sort of useful service to people who have money to pay for it. But, that's only after dark. You can't do it in the daytime. They probably still have to pay up the cops to leave them alone. And in the daytime, Cuba looks like this.
This is the state of Cuba right now. So I'm in Havana, and come look at the lineup to use an ATM machine. All these people waiting here is to get into this bank, just to use an ATM machine. They can only take out 3,000 pesos per week, which is right now $6.
Right? Just like the video I just showed, access to platforms, access to the bank. Who decides you have access? How much access you get when you get it? Okay. Cuba is an extreme example of that, being really, really bad. And, it couldn't get that bad here. It sort of is in some places. I did it because I was out doing the food delivery earlier for a couple hours today, and I went to a seafood place. I got like a seafood boil, whatever, and I go in there, and everybody. There was one fat white guy with a skinny black girlfriend, but everybody in there was black except for me. And like when you open when you open the door, you got that seafood aroma hits you, and then it got completely overwhelmed by fucking weed. Everybody in there smelled like they had been rolling in fucking pot leaves, and and they're all whatever. They're all fucking stoned out of their minds, and they're spending on what the fuck they're spending on the seafood, and I had to drive this shit like crazy far, and I drove it to South Orange, New Jersey, which is the fucking hood, and I dropped it off, and the app was like, "Want to keep going?" I was like, "Fuck no!" I shut the app off, and I got the fuck out of the hood. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna be delivering food in the hood to the DEI persons because yeah, that is a very, very high risk, very low reward system. But where are we gonna go? I don't have that much stuff. This was I to understand how ridiculous it is, and how the opportunity you have to escape this thing is you have to do something entirely different. And with nobody else to help you, and it has to come entirely from inside you, because no one's going to hold your fucking hand, and you have to make decisions, and then stick to those decisions, and see how it plays out. Because for people, and I'm going to show this video because once you see it, you think, "Oh, Jesus Christ, that's so fucking obvious. How come I didn't fucking think of that myself?" But you're busy thinking other things, and we do have a tendency to believe the shit that we still have a tendency to believe what they tell us.
There is no way this is Ghislaine Maxwell. This is the most recent photo of her released on Monday, February 9th, 2026. When you do a side-by-side comparison, the noses don't match, and either do the eyes. Looks like they've got the body double fitted with a cheap Amazon wig. When have we seen this before? Not only that, but the Friday before this picture was taken, New York Post conveniently got footage of Ghislaine Maxwell walking the yard in prison. And what do you know? They are now handing out umbrellas in jail. To make sure her skin doesn't get damaged, or maybe so we don't see her face. The question now is, did she ever actually go to prison? She may have taken these photos in 2020, but the video from that same day seems to be somebody entirely different. So, what do you think? Did Ghislaine's appearance completely change in the last 6 years since she's been in prison? Or did they swap her out with a bad body double? As always, I want to hear down below.
And then once you see it, you can't unsee it. Right? This is the level of control and power they have is not something you're ever going to challenge. There's no direct challenge to this in any way, shape, or form. The only thing you can do is try and build something else. That's it. That's your choice. Or you can go kidnap little fucking 5-year-olds and offer them up to bow. Okay, kudos to the Iranians for doing that, especially after them fighting off America and Israel again successfully. So good for them. That's genius PR. That's genius PR. And I think they should do that like once a year. But good for them. Yeah, but there's there's that reality that you have to live with and not lose sight of. That's all you can do. Although, from the internet, it's hard to fucking tell what's accurate and what's inaccurate. I remember seeing videos come across my feed talking about how fucking Russia's completely fucked and that the supermarkets are empty, and then I see a video like this.
Let's check out a grocery store in a Russian Arctic village. This store is beyond the polar circle in Teribirka, Russia, and it's the only one they have, so I wasn't expecting much. But to my surprise, it was fully stocked with lots of different items, including some that were very familiar, like M&Ms and other candies. So even in a remote place like Teribirka, you can find any groceries that you may need. Yes, even in the Arctic, you can find fruits and vegetables at this little store, so there you go. So yeah, I definitely wasn't starving when living in this remote Russian Arctic village.
So I don't know. Maybe Russia's not that bad. It's hard to tell from the internet what's real and what's not real, and that's only going to be exacerbated as things go forward. And to some degree, like I said, we kind of believe what's put in front of us. Oh, here's Ghislaine Maxwell in prison, and you're like, oh yeah, here's Ghislaine Maxwell in prison, and then nobody looks in the background. And so when you look around at what's going on, you got to look in the background, because it's the only way to figure it out. And the only way to get out of this is to destroy the current economic system. Cuba is the way Cuba is because of central banking. You know what I mean? I mean, Russia looks better. There's more food in the fucking Arctic Circle in Russia than there is in fucking the tropics of fucking Havana, Cuba. And that's not because food grows better in ice. That's not the reason why. So you need to listen. When guys like this start noticing shit, this is them. This is such a flex.
I think our country is occupied.
Who do you think we're occupied by?
AIPAC.
A lot of people think that.
The evidence is all there. We send $18 billion a year to Israel. Why? Just ask the question, what do we get out of it?
Nothing.
We get nothing. Are we doing humanitarian work? No, they're charged with genocide. They're killing off Palestinians. Are we helping them survive? Well, they've got a higher standard of living than we do, a longer lifespan than we do, free education, free housing, free healthcare, but we're sending them money. Why? Ask yourself why a U.S. congressman can wear an Israeli military uniform in congressional chambers. I would think that would be an act of treason. But they did. Nobody said anything. I have difficulty looking at that in any other way than we're occupied.
So that the guy talking to the Marine Corps dude, and the dude he's talking to is Sean Ryan, former CIA contractor bro, former Navy SEAL. So if the national security bros who started out as flag waving, I was in Afghanistan guys, are now saying that American, are now talking about Zog openly on that podcast, which is a big podcast. That's a sign to you how much fucking absolute fucking total dominance they have. You're not changing that. You're not breaking that. What you do is you plant seeds, right? Civilization grows by men who plant seeds for trees under which shade they will never sit. And that, kids, is your obligation. Now we got to refresh, reload. Okay, we have reloaded. So yeah, so that's that. So we're gonna have to. What else? What is this? What the fuck is this? Oh yeah, here's speaking of money and marijuana. Speaking of money and marijuana, this is a chart of a stock called Intercure, which is still traded. That's I think the current price, 92 cents a share. That spike in the middle, it went up to $8 for Intercure Limited. And here's one of Jeffrey Epstein's emails. Did I call my lawyer? Blah, 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 blah. The intention of investing in Intercure, the cannabis company, pre-listing in NASDAQ. When will we see you? So, they rug pulled the potheads on that publicly traded stock, and if you think they're not doing stuff like that all the time, here is how it's done. Where's how it's done? Where, James, is how it's done. Here's one of probably like 100 ways they manipulate shit.
Another manipulation technique is called spoofing. For example, a trading program will generate a number of overpriced purchase offers. Thanks to the extreme speed, these overpriced offers can be canceled immediately before anyone purchases them. But as these phantom offers are nevertheless seen, this creates the illusion that a number of dealers are interested in buying the offers, and that prices for these goods will soon rise significantly. Other traders react to this illusion, ensuring that the price actually does rise. The spoofer can now use previously acquired options bought at an unmanipulated price to make significant profits.
And they can do it to the downside as well. They can spoof artificially low prices, and then before the buy order comes, cancel that, and everyone thinks, oh no, this stock is tanking, that stock is tanking, Nvidia is no good, this one's no good, that one's no good. That's how they do stuff. And they make real fiat, they make tons of fiat, and then they buy fucking real things with it. They buy an island, they have a ranch in New Mexico, they get to own every fucking thing. So you aren't going to beat them at that fucking game. You know what I mean? You just aren't. So stop playing, burning an image of Baal, which, like I said, that was I really liked that. That was brilliant. Well done, kebab bros. But the world you live in, and this, by the way, I will now introduce you to the patron saint or the patron of Gavin Newsom, who's probably going to be the next president. Here's John Paul Getty.
This is John Paul Getty. This is the face of the man I will now always associate with the inhumanity of billionaires. And he was a billionaire back in the 1960s. And what he did when his grandson was kidnapped is one of the most fucked up things I've ever heard. This man was so cheap, he had a payphone installed in his house so that he didn't have to pay for his guest calls. But in 1973, his grandson, John Paul Getty III, was kidnapped in Rome. And the kidnappers asked for a $17 million ransom. And John Paul Getty initially refused, saying, I have 14 grandsons, and if I pay 1 penny now, I will have 14 kidnapped grandsons. The kidnappers eventually cut off the poor kid's ear and mailed it to John Paul Getty, who then bargained with the kidnappers to pay no more than $2.2 million, the maximum tax deductible amount, because he was still not going to pay it. And he loaned that $2.2 million to his son at 4% interest and made his son pay him back for the ransom. Not only did he not pay anything, but he turned a profit from his own son over this shit. That is the level of inhumanity that all of these fucking billionaires have. John Paul Getty III slipped into a life of drinking and hard drugs due to the trauma from this. He had a stroke, fucked his whole life up. But at least John Paul Getty didn't have to pay a fucking dime. That's what I'll think of now when I think of the Getty Museum in LA or Getty Images that bears his name.
Can you imagine? You take a tax write-off on your grandson being kidnapped, and you make a profit off of loaning your son the money to ransom your own child. These are the fucking people that run this country, okay? And Gavin Newsom is the golden child of the Getty family, and they want him in the White House, and it's very possible they'll get it. So if that's how they treat their own children and grandchildren, how will they treat you? You have to ask yourself that question. And then, whatever conclusion you come to, make your decisions from there. But pretending you're going to beat this is you being about as fucking delusional as it is possible to be. I don't think it gets any more delulu than that. And then, but here's a perfect example. These guys, the fears you have, like my fears, of course, everyone, oh, you're not going to be starving and homeless. You'll magically pay your rent by going, one of those fucking Cuban dudes, not Cuban dudes, Colombian guys I work with, starts telling me, oh, you could buy a van and keep working for the company, like put out $10,000 for a fucking van and then call up every morning at 5 o'clock in the fucking morning and hope to get a fucking job. I'm like, nah, fuck that. I ain't doing it. I'm not spending 10 grand and fucking, on a fucking truck for this company that's fucked me over like it has. I work fucking 10 years for these motherfuckers, 6 days a week, and I'm gonna what? Go deeper? Go into debt for them now? Fuck that shit. And then this kid's a bullshitter. I don't know why he does this. They slip into this fucking bullshit. He's like, oh, he said, you should do TikTok. He says, you like to be on the internet all the time. You should do TikTok. He says, my wife makes $2,000 a week doing TikTok. The fuck out of here. Your wife makes fucking $2,000 a week doing TikTok. Fucking bullshit artist. But yeah, people are just so full of shit. And they believe what they're gonna believe. And they believe they're telling you some fucking some idiotic story is gonna fucking change reality. And I want to look, good thing this guy was on the phone because I would have smacked him in the head. The things you fear are real to you. However, they're not so real to other people. And I can argue that the longer you spend with your fears, a particular fear, the more real it becomes to you. And this is something, once again, one of my favorite subjects to fucking shit on, unity.
The day the Latino, African American, Asian, and other communities realize that they share the same oppressor is the day we start winning, because we are the majority in this country now.
Texas Representative Gene Wu says all non-white Americans share the same oppressor. They need to rise up, unite together politically to oppose this oppressor, make things fair for everybody. You're allowed to have citizenship and vote and use freedom of speech and go to law school and hold public office. If it was unfair, you wouldn't be able to do any of that. Would it be more fair if it was like China, where you can't get citizenship?
Oh no, someone's calling for unity. Maybe this time it'll work. Maybe this time it'll work. If you have to call for unity, you're full of shit. Okay. If people cannot see what is in their own best interest, you can't fucking help them. You cannot help them. So, and that ultimately, I guess, is the biggest, one of the things I figured out most about myself and about people in general. If you can't see what's in your best interest for whatever reason, good luck to you, because I personally do not have the excess resources to expend on you. You know what I mean? I'm not being like Ziggy the Pollock here, but let's be honest. I've been saying, every man for himself for a long time, for a long, long time. So I've been very consistent with that. Stop being afraid of the great Negro, Latino, Chinese unity monster, or whatever this fucking kid believes in. It's never going to happen. It is literally never, ever, ever, ever going to happen. They're all going to hang on to their little green pieces of paper or their stable coins or the digital dollar or whatever the fuck, and they're going to go right down the fucking tubes with everyone else. Just like the kulaks in Russia, just like the people on the wrong side of the Cultural Revolution in China, just like a dozen other fucking times. And you don't want to be that. You want to sidestep that whole fucking thing and let all these fucking lemmings charge off of whatever cliff, whatever ideological cliff they're going to charge over. Anyway, with that, we're only at 44 minutes, really only 44 minutes. But considering this will be the last chill stream for quite some time, you better smash up the like button. Somebody, especially the Rumble people, who apparently, I think they're all bots though. I think they're all bots. To be honest, I think they're all bots. Because the numbers on that channel are like so much higher than the numbers in this channel, but nobody ever hits the like button. I can't imagine 10, 12, 15, 17 people tuning in every week and then nobody hitting the like button. It's got to be bots. It must be. Anyway. With that, yeah, so stay above the kill line, ladies and gentlemen. And the way to do that is to disengage as much as you can from their platforms and minimize their ability to rent seek on you. So, Virgil Doc, Purple Heart, and who else is here? Nobody else. He's all by himself tonight. Virgil Doc, Purple Heart, Corvus Keel, all the people that have commented in the past. Thanks for riding along with me, guys. And this isn't the end, but I would not expect a whole lot of content coming from me for some time because I have to work my fucking ass off. Anyway, thanks a lot, guys, and I'll talk to you again sometime in the future.